Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello everybody, I hope that you're doing well. Today we're going to work on Surah Al-Rahman, which is the 55th Surah of Al-Quran Al-Kareem, and it is made of 78 verses. Surah Al-Rahman is named after one of the most beautiful names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is Ar-Rahman, the most merciful. This surah shows the example of divine grace and the importance of various gifts and blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Surah Al-Rahman was revealed at the beginning of the Meccan period, several years before the Hijrah, but some scholars think that it was revealed in the city of Medina. It is said that reciting Surah Al-Rahman invokes many blessings and brings many spiritual rewards. Indeed, according to some scholars, the Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad said that Allah will sympathize with the weaknesses of people who recite Surah Al-Rahman. Whoever recites it will have shown their gratitude for the benefits that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed on them. Surah Al-Rahman stands out from the other surahs of Al-Quran Al-Kareem. Our Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad described it as Arusat Al-Quran, which is the bride of the Quran, the most beautiful. In fact, Surah Al-Rahman, the merciful, is different from the other surah, both by its form, the strength of the style, the intensity of the images, the beauty of the description, and in its content, its themes and messages. Surah Al-Rahman, the merciful, sets out the various material and moral and spiritual benefits that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted to His servants. Therefore, we could call it also the Surah of Mercy or the Surah of Beneficence. And this is the reason why it begins with the blessed name of the merciful, which forms the first verse. We notice that a dual verse recurs regularly 31 times. Which of the benefits of your Lord will you both deny? It is repeated to get the attention of humans and jinns and to highlight the evidence of the manifestation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy through His numerous benefits. According to some scholars, the Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad said that when a person recites Surah Al-Rahman, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ, O you man and jinns, which of the blessings of the Lord will you deny? The jinns used to reply, O Lord, we deny none of your benefits, you alone are worthy of praise. Surah Al-Rahman is the only surah of Al-Quran Al-Kareem which is addressed in addition to man to the jinns. The jinns are another race of creatures endowed with the free will. Mankind and the jinns are invited to become aware of the wonders aroused by the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His countless blessings, and they are warned of their own destitution and the accountability they will have to render to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they are warned of the terrible consequences of any disobedience towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they are likewise made aware of the happy results of an obedient and a pious conduct. Just as with men, the jinns are also creatures gifted with the free will. They will be subject to accountability. They also have the freedom to believe or not to believe, to obey or to disobey. Surah Al-Rahman emphasizes that Sayyidina Muhammad's prophetic mission and the Quran are intended for both the jinns and the men. However, the beginning of the surah is addressed exclusively to mankind because it is to them alone that falls the earth responsibility. It is within their community that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose His prophets, and it is in their language that the sacred books were revealed. We can divide the content of Surah Al-Rahman into 5 parts. The first part, which covers the 5 first verses, highlights the great divine benefits relating to the creation of man, to his education and instruction, and to his spiritual and bodily nourishment. The second part explains the question of the creation of man and jinns. The third part lists the divine signs and proofs on earth and heaven. The fourth part describes in a precise and detailed manner the benefits and privileges reserved in paradise for pious servants. The fifth part discusses the fate of the disbelievers and the sinners, the criminals, and the severe punishment that will await them is briefly discussed. The brief presentation of the fate of disbelievers contrasts with the detailed description of the reward given to pious and believers, because Surah Al-Rahman is dedicated to the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which affects everyone, including disbelievers, especially when they become repentant. Now I will translate Surah Al-Rahman ayah by ayah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ar-Rahman, the all-merciful, the most gracious. علم القرآن, he has taught the Quran. خلق الإنسان, he has created the human. علمه البيان, and he has taught him the expression, comprehending and being able to express and explain. الشمس والقمر بحسبان, the sun and the moon, their creation and movement in their orbits and by astrophysical calculation are designed and based on delicate balances. والنجم والشجر يسجدان, the stars and the trees both prostrate to Allah. والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان, and the sky he raised it high and designed the balance. ألا تطغوا في الميزان, do not exceed the limit at due balance, measurement, do not act unjustly. وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان, and observe the weight with justice and do not make the measure deficient. والأرض وضعها للأنام, and the earth he designed it for animals and all living creatures. فيها فاكهة ونخل ذات الأكمام, therein are fruits and blossomed date palm trees. والحب ذو العصف والريحان, there are grains with leaves and scented herbs. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان, then which of the blessing of your Lord do you belie? خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the human from sounding clay like the clay of pottery. وَخَلَقَ الْجَنَّ مِن مَارِجٍ مِن نَارٍ, and he created the jinn from a smokeless flame of bright fire. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ, then which of the blessing of your Lord do you belie? From ayah 1 to ayah 16, the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are described as part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation and created beings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created human beings and endowed them with the power of speech, which is a privilege He has not granted to any other created being. The world surrounding humans is based on principle of fairness and justice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants humans to follow. Al-Quran al-Karim is the verbal expression of this divine justice, and the universe is its practical expression. In ayah 1 to ayah 4, it was stated that the teaching of Al-Quran al-Karim came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His mercy implied that guidance be given to humanity through His teaching, for He is the one who created man as a thinking and intelligent being. From ayah 5 to ayah 6, we learned that the entire universe evolves under the sovereignty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that everything on earth and in the heavens is subject only to His command. From ayah 7 to ayah 9, another important truth is expressed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala based the entire universe precisely and equitably on justice, and that in essence this system required that we should apply this justice within the limits of our authority and refrain from disrupting the balance. From ayah 10 to ayah 16, there is a mention of the wonders and excellence of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there is a reference to the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enjoyed by the jinns and men. رَبُّ الْمَشْرِقَيْنِ وَرَبُّ الْمَغْرِبَيْنِ, He is the Lord of the two east and the two west. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مرج البحرين يلتقيان, He has made the two seas to flow so that they meet or join together. بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان. Between them there is a barrier which none of them can transgress. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان. Out of them both comes out pearl and coral. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان وله الجوار المنشآت في البحر كالأعلام. And his are the ships built in the sea like mountains. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. From ayah 17 to ayah 25, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about all the blessings in the firmament. Much of the universe is filled with the stars, made almost exclusively of fire. The jinns were created from fire, but human beings were created from clay. In winter and summer, the sun rises and sets in different places. It is the axial tilt of the earth in space that produces these seasonal differences. This inclination is a unique factor that provides many benefits to human beings. كل من عليها فان. Everyone is on term. Everyone will die. ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. And the face, the essence of your Lord, the owner of punishment and generosity, will remain forever. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يسألوه من في السماوات والأرض كل يوم هو في شأن. All those who are in the heavens and the earth ask from him. Every day he is upon a separate manifestation, like a new happening. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان سنفرغ لكم أيها الثقلان. O you who have a weight, soon will attend to you. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. From ayah 26 to ayah 30, both men and jinns are reminded of the truth that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is immortal and imperishable in this universe. Everything that happens here on earth and in the heavens take place under the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From verses 30 to 32, everything on earth will eventually disappear. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never dies. The creation of the universe is a miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in the same way, the end of this universe will be a sign of His power, for it will demonstrate that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so majestic that He is entirely self-sufficient and that He does not depend on any of His creation. He doesn't need anything. We are so weak before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so how can we reject our Lord the Almighty? We like to recognize the fact that He provides for our needs, but we have a harder time recognizing our duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يا معشر الجن والإنس إن استطعتم أن تنفذوا من أقطار السماوات والأرض فانفذوا لا تنفذون إلا بسلطان. O assembly of the jinns and the humans, if you have power to penetrate through the diametrical zones of the heavens and the earth, then penetrate. You cannot penetrate through them except with a sultan. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يرسل عليكم شواط من نار ونحاس فلا تنتصران. A flame of fire and smoke shall be sent on you, then you cannot help each other. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. Both groups have been warned that the time when they will be called to account for their action is quickly approaching. They will not be able to avoid it nor to escape it. And if they have the illusion of being able to escape it, they just have to try to do so. Humans and jinns are powerless against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala challenges men and jinns. How far can they escape from Him? The power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not to be taken lightly. The flames of hell will be unleashed on the jinns and men, and they will be unable to defend themselves. فإذا انشقت السماء فكانت وردة كالدهان. When the heavens were split, then it had become a red rose like of melted oil. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيومئذ لا يسأل عن ذنبه إنس ولا جان. So on that day of permission, neither man nor jinn shall be asked about their sins. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يعرف المجرمون بسماهم فيؤخذ بالنواسي والأقدام. The guilty shall be recognized by their face, so they shall be seized by their forehead and feet. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هذه جهنم التي يكذب بها المجرمون. This hell which the guilty belied. يطوفون بينها وبين حميم آن. They go circling round between it and fierce boiling water. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. From ayah 37 to ayah 38, it was made clear that the day of resurrection is the day when we will have to give accounts for our actions. From ayah 39 to ayah 47, the bad end of the culprits among men and jinns who disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world is mentioned. Denial and arrogance always arise from a lack of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the terrible day comes, the guilty will drop their arrogance and the truth that they refuse to recognize despite all the evidence around them. They will accept it on that terrible day, but it will be too late. Criminals, disbelievers who reject the truth and lead a life of disobedience will receive the punishment they deserve. This terrible scene makes us fear the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this fear makes us humble. We should feel a mixture of love and fear towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fear to be punished and to avoid sins, while love gives us the hope and energy. We need to always try to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This love intensifies when God, through His message, lets us glimpse the paradise that He has prepared for all those who fear the day of judgment and who act accordingly. وَلِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ جَنَّتَانِ. And for those who fear the post of their Lord are two heavens. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ذوات أفنان, both having various sciences. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما عينان تجريان, and in both are two fountains flowing. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما من كل فاكهة زوجان. In both of heavens are two pairs of every fruit. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان متكئين على فروش بطائنها من استبرق وجن جنتان دان. Reclining on silk brocade mattresses with thick liners, and the fruits of the two gardens are near. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهن قاصرة الطرف لم يطمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان. In then both heavens are spouse who dedicate their eyes only to their spouse. No man has had ever touched them before them or jinns. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كأنهن الياقوت والمرجان, as both they are rubies and corals. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان. Could the reward of beneficence be anything other than beneficence? فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ومن دونهما جنتان, and beside these two are two other heavens. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مدهانتان, both heavens are all green. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما عينان نضاختان, in both are two springs gushing forth constantly. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما فاكهة ونخل ورمان, and in both are fruits, dates and pomegranates. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما خيرات الحسان, in them are good, beautiful women. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان حور مقصورات في الخيام, they are female angels in the private pavilions. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان متكئين على رفرف خضر وعبقري حسان, they are the ones, the people of heaven, who recline on high green cushions and beautiful embroidered mattresses. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان تبارك اسم ربك ذي الجلال والإكرام. Blessed is the name of your Lord, the owner of punishment and generosity. From ayah 46 until the end of the surah are mentioned the rewards granted to the people of the righteousness among humans and jinns who will have led a pious life in this world and with the conviction that they will have to appear one day before their Lord and give an account to their deeds and actions. It is a spiritual message where every wonder of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's immense power and every generosity bestowed by Him is a manifestation of His sovereignty, and every aspect of His punishment and His rewards are mentioned, followed by a question addressed to the jinns and to man: which of the benefits of your Lord do you deny? From ayah 46 to ayah 48, we talk about the greatest blessings of paradise, that are the two gardens that the pious will receive, one for having obeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the other for having kept away from prohibitions. The gardens will be made up of gigantic trees, beautiful rivers, delicious fruits, luxurious sofas, and captivating companions. The pleasures of paradise will not be limited to these two gardens. There will be other, even more luxuriant, with fountains and fruits in abundance. This surah is dedicated to the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which generally affects all world, including disbelievers. Indeed, including disbelievers, especially when they show themselves to be repentant. There are 5 common elements in the 2 pair of gardens: plants or trees, the water and the different water sources, the fruits and the beds. And 5th is the companions, the huris. But if each of these 5 elements seems identical in certain ways in the 2 pair of gardens, they differ from one another in other aspects. So all of these gardens contain 5 elements or 5 environmental ingredients that are similar: plants, water, fruits, beds, and huris, companions. Our future remains totally dependent on our acts of piety and belief for which we were created. Our actions and our deeds will shape our behavior and will prepare our eternal home. Wallahu a'lam. I hope that this small explanation and translation of Surah Ar-Rahman was helpful. I wish you the best. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bye-bye.